Alarm grows in European capitals and the halls of Congress over President Trump's intentions in Greenland. Is a Nobel Peace Prize snub really a part of all this? The Insurrection Act, U.S. troops on standby. Are these warranted in Minneapolis? We look at the constitutional lay of the land. And it is Championship Monday for students at Indiana University and the University of Miami. The Cinderella story stakes are sky high, and we will hear all about it. Hello, everyone. I'm Major Garrett in Washington. Welcome to the Takeout. The NATO alliance in Minneapolis exists tonight in a state of alarmed uncertainty. NATO, a vanguard of Western unity and defense for 76 years, could dissolve if, as President Trump routinely threatens, the U.S. military invades Greenland to hasten its acquisition.
If he wants to purchase Greenland, that's one thing. But for him to militarily invade would turn Article 5 of NATO on its very head and, in essence, put us at war with NATO itself. It would end up abolishing NATO as we know it.
As for Minneapolis, 1,500 American troops now in Alaska stand by for orders to deploy there. A military maneuver like Greenland threatened but not yet begun. And a potentially ominous sign, state National Guard troops are also on standby. A ratcheting up of this potential standoff beckons, but has not yet been realized. An alliance, an American city, wondering what may come next, whether U.S. troops will make them into something different, something unrecognizable. All this on Martin Luther King Day. Greenland and Minneapolis appear disconnected, but historically share connective tissue. Greenland, as you probably have read, is an autonomous territory of Denmark. Denmark is part of Scandinavia, made up of Finland, Sweden, Norway, Iceland, and the Faroe Islands. Minnesota is home to the highest concentration of Scandinavian immigrants in America. Norwegians, Danes, Swedes, Finns all immigrated to Minnesota in large numbers after the Civil War. They did this through chain migration, one family member first, followed by another. In some ways, they assimilated. In other ways, they preserved their culture with their own newspapers, churches, restaurants, and businesses, places where their native language, not English, dominated. Those terms, chain migration, assimilation, cultural identity, ripple through conversations today about Minneapolis and its immigrant population, now being pursued by ICE personnel. President Trump says America needs Greenland for its security. He says Minnesota must be purged of illegal immigrants for its security. Troops poised for both suggest fateful days ahead for an alliance and an American city. In Europe, leaders are girding for a possible tariff war with Trump over Greenland, destabilizing, to be sure, but not as calamitous as a shooting one. Minneapolis does not know what to expect, but fear predominates.
We are doing everything possible to keep the peace, notwithstanding this occupying force that has quite literally invaded our city. I mean, we've got 600 cops in the city of Minneapolis, and we're talking about 3,000 plus ICE agents and border control that have come in.
For law enforcement in Minneapolis, this cauldron, as they told 60 Minutes, looks eerily and worryingly familiar.
We're in this 2020 moment where all these tensions have been building. And I'm afraid we're going to have another moment where it all explodes.
Federal officials exhibiting no tolerance for interference told 60 Minutes they're misunderstood, that their mission is legal, and they must err on the side of self-protection.
You're not seeing the entirety of the situation. Not only that, mainstream media is picking up those social media posts and putting them out as real news without looking at the whole story.
We begin tonight with Ian Lee in Minneapolis. Ian, what's going on?
Major, despite being this now the warmest part of the day, 0 degrees, it felt like negative 22 earlier. You still have hundreds of people coming out here to this ICE detention center protesting against their current operation. People are chanting, they're blowing whistles, they have blow horns. Whenever you have a vehicle leave this detention facility, you have people hissing and yelling at them. This has been a sight that we've seen over the past few days, this tension that still remains quite high as this operation continues.
I see bike racks behind you, Ian. Are those new, and are they sort of a crowd control device to keep the protesters from entering the street and thereby sort of antagonizing federal law enforcement?
Yeah, Major, that's a good eye because these barricades are relatively new. This ICE detention facility has been a flashpoint between protesters and federal agents. Before these barricades were put up, you would have protesters going into the streets. That would elicit a reaction from the federal officers who would come out, try to push them back. At times, we've seen pepper spray, we've seen tear gas, all sorts of means to try to push them back onto the sidewalk. Now you have a pretty heavy sheriff's presence here. They have cars all up and down this road, and they have more of these barriers put in to kind of try to help keep the peace.
Ian, I also want to ask you about this. A 36-year-old man arrested by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement in Minneapolis, we have learned, has died while in federal custody in Texas. What do we know about that?
Yeah, this is Victor Manuel Diaz. He was arrested earlier this month. He was taken to a detention facility in Texas Wednesday afternoon. He was found unresponsive in his cell. We are told that paramedics arrived. They tried to revive him, but he died. They are ruling this, DHS, a suicide, but an investigation is still underway. Diaz had crossed into the United States from Mexico in 2024, and he was a citizen of Nicaragua.
Ian, very quickly, are ICE immigration enforcement actions still occurring in Minneapolis as best you can tell?
Very much so. We see them coming in and out of this facility around the clock. So it makes you believe that they are still out there in the streets, going to places where they think someone could be here undocumented. And so this operation doesn't seem like it's letting up, at least anytime soon, Major.
Ian Lee, on the scene for us in Minneapolis. Thank you very much. I want to bring in our CBS News legal contributor, Jessica Levinson. Jessica, I'm always grateful to have you on the show. I want to ask you about the Insurrection Act. What are its underlying legal parameters? Is anything happening in Minneapolis based on American precedent worthy of its declaration?
Just a few light questions. First of all, I always love talking to you and about these really weighty legal issues because the Insurrection Act is really like pulling a ripcord for a very, very serious consequence here. So when it comes to the Insurrection Act, there are basically three different parts. The first part is a governor asks you for help. Obviously, that's not what's happening in Minnesota right now. The second part is that there's some sort of rebellion or some sort of insurrection where federal officers cannot carry out federal law. We might be looking at that second part. And then the third part was used during the civil rights era, about 1957 to 1968, where states were undermining people's constitutional rights. And so in order to carry out desegregation orders, presidents used the Insurrection Act to send in the military. Now, as you know, the Insurrection Act allows us to pause posse comitatus, meaning that what we would have is the military directly enforcing domestic law on domestic soil. And that obviously is a huge exception to our general understanding that the military can't do that.
Jessica, has it ever been the case with the invocation of the Insurrection Act that those who are protesting government action are portrayed or legally defined as insurrectionists?
So Not to my knowledge. When we think about peaceful protests, not to my knowledge. And you asked me about precedent here. The precedent is, I'm talking to you from Los Angeles, the early 1990s. The governor said we need help because of the riots in the early 1990s as a result of the Rodney King case. When it comes to other precedent, we just talked about it. It's where president says that states are not carrying out desegregation orders. And so you have to send in the military to carry out those particular orders and protect people's constitutional rights. I don't see any historic analog when we're thinking about people who are protesting, even when protests get out of order. We should remember, of course, that saying I'm going to invoke the Insurrection Act is not just one step, but maybe 5 steps past what we've previously seen, which is the president saying, I'm going to federalize the National Guard.
Jessica, sometimes litigation in real time can shine a light on a pending issue. There was a decision on Friday, which a federal district judge, as I understand it, said some of the tactics used by ICE personnel have to be stopped against protesters because they were excessive. The Trump Justice Department has appealed that this afternoon. Would that in any way inform any legal clash that would come should the Insurrection Act be invoked?
So I think if the Insurrection Act is invoked, then we're under a completely different paradigm. And Major, you asked me about this before. I just want to make clear, there is a question as to whether or not when a president says, I'm invoking the Insurrection Act, if that's even reviewable by federal courts. Because you just asked me about a situation where a federal court said, you know what? When it comes to peaceful protesters, you can't use chemical agents. You can't use tear gas. Obviously, a federal judge is saying it, meaning a federal judge feels comfortable reviewing the actions of the federal government. But when it comes to the Insurrection Act, there are cases dating all the way back to 1805 that indicate that might be a question only for a president. And so that would put us, again, in a completely different legal framework if we were to use the Insurrection Act.
Completely different legal framework. Words to think about and ponder. Jessica Levinson, always with the answers. Appreciate it so very much.
Thank you.
President Trump is tying his unsuccessful bid for the Nobel Peace Prize to his efforts to acquire Greenland. He really did this. In a message sent to Norway's prime minister, which was shared with other NATO allies, primarily through their ambassadors, Trump said in part, quote, considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars plus, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace. CBS News White House reporter Willie James Inman joins me now. Willie James, give us some perspective on this. It's not the only reason. Clearly, there are national security implications. The president's talked about that before. But this Nobel Prize snub seems to be an irritant the president himself is raising for public scrutiny.
Yeah, that's right, Major. And the White House confirming this afternoon the text conversation that the president had there with the Prime Minister of Norway. Now, setting that aside, the Nobel Peace Prize and the perceived snub that Trump believes that he deserves that prize, he's oftentimes talked about the strategic need for Greenland, the national security concerns that he has there, that somehow Russia and China will try to get their hands on Greenland and that it would be better protected in the hands of the United States. And we did reach out to the White House about this text exchange from the President of the United States to the Prime Minister of Finland. We did get a statement from White House spokesperson Anna Kelly that talks about the situation in Greenland and talks about the reason why the White House believes that it will be better served in the hands of America. And the statement goes on to say President Trump believes Greenland is a strategically important location that is critical from the standpoint of national security, and he is confident Greenlanders would be better served if protected by the United States from modern threats in the Arctic region. And then that statement goes on to say the president is committed to establishing long-term peace at home and abroad. We, of course, know that this rhetoric coming from the White House and coming from the president himself has certainly raised a lot of eyebrows and caused a lot of concern amongst NATO allies, amongst European nations. But the thinking here, at least from the White House standpoint, from those public statements, including from the president, again, setting aside that Nobel Peace Prize perceived snub, is that is strategically needed for the United States, whether it's critical minerals or it's a place where military assets can be placed. And I'll point out that the U.S. government already has access, wide-ranging access, the Danes note, in terms of being able to build military bases there on that Arctic island. So certainly the president not backing down from his message and his push to acquire Greenland despite the
Willie
major
James, very
pushback that he's
quickly.
receiving from European leaders.
Willie James, very quickly, on tariffs. That's also been injected into this conversation.
Yeah, that's right. That is certainly something that the president has talked about. He threatened it, and then over the weekend we saw a statement coming from the president that 10% tariffs will go into effect on February 1st on those 8 European nations that are pushing back against the president's plan. That will go up to 25% in June until a deal is made for the U.S. to purchase and acquire Greenland, Major.
Willie James Inman, thank you very much. Appreciate it. William C. Banks joins me now. He's professor of law emeritus at Syracuse University College of Law. Professor, it's great to have you with us.
Thanks
for my audience's benefit, is there a legal basis upon which the United States can forcibly or through financial transaction acquire Greenland?
Well, a deal is a deal, as President Trump likes to say, but by force, the short answer is no. The use of American troops to forcibly take Greenland would violate both U.S. law, the Constitution of the United States mainly, as well as international law, the United Nations Charter, and the North Atlantic Treaty, the umbrella document that holds European nations with the United States in mutual defense.
Professor, the administration regards the legal relationship between Greenland and Denmark as flimsy. That's a point of view. Does it have any legal basis?
No, it really doesn't. I think that the Danes and the Greenlanders have arrived at a satisfactory arrangement between this semi-autonomous region and Denmark, so that Greenland is indeed a part of Denmark, certainly according to Danish law, to Greenland law, and to international law. So I think that's a weak reed upon which to build or find a flaw in their relationship.
And Professor, as Willie James Inman just helpfully pointed out, the United States has access to Greenland. At one point during the Cold War, it had 17 military bases. It decided on its own to reduce that number, 17 now to 1, a Space Force base there. So it has access. It has used that access before. It has had cordial relations with Greenland and Greenlanders over projecting military clout throughout that region. I still am confused about what this is all actually about.
I think many of us are confused because the arrangement that's been in writing for 70 years now that allows the United States to build bases, make defense installations, install intelligence equipment and personnel. In essence, the United States is allowed to do whatever it wants to do in Greenland as it is. We don't own the territory. We don't own its mineral resources. That may be part of what the president is driving at here. But we can do what we want to do on the island now based on long-standing commitments between the Greenlanders, the Danes, and the United States.
Professor, you're a student of legal precedent, but also legal tactics. What are the legal options for Greenlanders or the Danes?
Well, all indications are that the Danes and their treaty partners in the North Atlantic Treaty are going to hold firm and insist that Greenland is not for sale, that the Greenlanders view themselves as sovereign, that is, in charge of their own affairs. That's a view that the Danes respect. I think if there was a referendum in Greenland now about whether Greenland wished to become a part of the United States, it would fail miserably. It wouldn't be close. And I think the Danes and the rest of their European NATO partners are going to respect that view. And let's hope that the United States does as well.
Professor William C. Banks, it's been a pleasure, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Sure.
We have new CBS poll numbers on President Trump's handling of Greenland, immigration, and the economy. Anthony Salvanto is at the big board and ready to walk us through the numbers. He's your friend, he's mine. He'll be up next. Plus, Elon Musk back to bankrolling Republicans. After a high visibility spat with President Trump and a brief flirtation with a third party, Musk writes a very big check to help a Senate GOP candidate in Kentucky. And as unrest continues on the streets of Minneapolis, what might Martin Luther King Jr. make of this moment in American history? I will ask his son later this hour. The Takeout returns in 90 seconds. Welcome back. Tomorrow, lest you need to be reminded, will mark 1 year of President Trump's second term in office. A new CBS News poll numbers show dissatisfaction with his handling of the economy and immigration. That's interesting. 74% told us the administration is not doing enough to lower prices. 23% said it's doing the right amount. Interestingly, 58% said they disapprove of the president's handling of immigration. I want to bring in Anthony Salvanto to break down these numbers. Anthony, take the ball and run.
How you doing, Major? Look, let me start with this for larger context, which I know you always appreciate. That number you said at the top, where 3/4 say the administration not focusing enough on lowering prices. Why is that? Because this, which frankly is not news, but then that's the point. It's been the story all year. And for many years, people say their income isn't keeping up with inflation. Prices are how they evaluate the economy. The economy's ratings have been low, not just this year, but for many years. The thing is, coming into this, a lot of people expected to be better off financially, but right now more people tell us they feel worse off than better after a year. That's what's behind those numbers you mentioned.
What is behind the numbers on immigration, Anthony?
On immigration, it really starts right now with views about how ICE is handling the deportation program, which I'll show you this because it really sort of sums everything up. Difference between goals and approach is goals get mixed, like and dislike, but the approach gets much more negative ratings. And one of the reasons for that is this movement that we've seen for people saying when ICE is stopping and detaining people, an increase now in the number who say they think that's too tough. What that does is it drives this increasing overall disapproval of the program, Major.
Also, did we ask Anthony about the president's emphasis in the second term on overseas intervention or peacemaking?
We did, and so thank you for asking. And I will show you this because 2 points. One is too much emphasis in the public mind on events overseas. Compare that to the number you said at the top, which is 3/4 saying not enough on lowering prices. So that's one thing. And then the other is using military force to take Greenland. 86% disapprove of the idea. It's one of those things increasingly rare these days that you see partisans agreeing on. You don't get a number that big unless you've got Republicans and Democrats all in this bucket of disapprove, man.
Anthony, I love to do this with you. Any nugget in there you want to share? Anything that fits your choose your own adventure?
Choose your adventure. It's this. Anytime you see a poll number, it's the why behind it that really matters. On that Greenland point, look at this. When you ask people, what do you think the implications would be for America using military force to take Greenland, causing the U.S. to leave NATO, creating instability in the world? Those are the things, the concerns, if you will, that are driving those big disapproval numbers I mentioned.
Anthony Salvanto, always a pleasure, sir. Thank you. Pennsylvania governor and possible 2028 presidential hopeful Josh Shapiro shared the strange questions, he thought they were strange, he received in his vice presidential vetting process. You know what? Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, got some strange questions too. Our political panel weighs in on that and much more next, right here on The Takeout. Welcome back. Here's a look at what else we and now you are watching this evening. The Trump administration is asking countries that want a permanent seat on his new Gaza Board of Peace to contribute at least $1 billion. A White House official tells CBS that any contributions will be used to rebuild Gaza and said, quote, virtually every dollar, unquote, raised will be spent on the board's mandate. Invitations to join the board were sent out to Argentina, Canada, Egypt, Turkey, Jordan, and many other countries. So far, France has declined, Morocco has accepted. This just-released surveillance video shows the moment thieves smashed display cases in the Louvre heist of crown jewels. The French government has pegged the jewels' value at more than $100 million. 4 men remain under investigation for the October robbery. The jewels have not yet been recovered. Maybe never will be. Stay tuned. Josh Shapiro says that Kamala Harris's team, the vetting team, asked him if he was a double agent for Israel while he was under consideration to be Harris's running mate. In a new book from the Pennsylvania governor, he writes that he responded by saying the question was offensive. He says someone from then vice president's team told him, quote, well, we have to ask. Incidentally, CNN this afternoon reported that Governor Tim Walz, as he was being vetted and became Vice President Harris's running mate, was asked if he was a Chinese agent because of several trips to China. To devour all this, I want to bring in our political panel. John McCarthy, Democratic strategist and former senior advisor in the Biden White House. Lance Trover, Republican strategist, was press secretary for Doug Burgum's presidential campaign. So let me start with you. It is said by those within the Harris campaign, these are hard questions. You must ask hard questions in the vetting process. By their very nature, they are going to be intrusive and they are going to be possibly bothersome. Does this cross the line in your estimation, John?
Well, I mean, to that point, that's kind of what a vetting process is supposed to be about. It's also supposed to test you and ask questions that kind of get under your skin. Anyone who's ever sat through one of these would tell you it is an invasive and uncomfortable process. You know, as a Catholic, I would say that this makes confession seem pleasant. And, you know, you see similar questions being asked of Governor Walz, right? But I will say, when this question was posed to Governor Shapiro, whoever asked it was kind of a knucklehead. You know, this is something at a time when anti-Semitism is on the rise. Words really do matter. But, you know, I sat down the hall from the vice president's office. I spent time on the campaign trail with her and Doug, the second gentleman. And this is not reflective of who they are.
Is it reflective of a spat between Shapiro and Harris that Shapiro now wants to take to the next level, even as they both look at a 2028 campaign?
Anything that is ever going to be said amongst two candidates who are vying for the same office is always going to be blown up to be something larger than it is. I wouldn't read too much into this one.
Lance?
I mean, it's anti-Semitic for sure. I mean, there's no question about that. And I mean, I find it. I can't. I mean, look, I get vetting processes are tough, but I mean, do we really think he was a double agent for Israel? And look, I think this speaks to the larger problem within the Democratic Party and the issues they have. We see they elected Mamdani, but I will add this, my friend.
What do you when you say the larger problems? What are you talking
with anti-Semitism? Their anti-Israel approach. I mean, this is where they are trending more and more in the Democratic Party. I think it's a real problem for them. Look at Mamdani. I mean, look, that's their approach to Israel is they're becoming the party of anti-Israel. There's no question about it. But I will say this, in the same vein. My friend Richard Goldberg, who's kind of an expert in the anti-Semitic world, I thought he had a really interesting post on X today where he said, to Republican operatives, take note that the Harris anti-Semitism helped destroy the Harris campaign. And it was his note to Republicans as well, where we've had on the fringes of our party anti-Semitism.
In the last 4 or 5 months, there's this roiling conversation about what is or isn't anti-Semitism within conservative Trumpian ranks.
And so that's what I would say. Both parties should take note of this. But yes, personally, I can see why he was offended by it.
Lance, I want to ask a threshold question on this since you raised it. The Democratic Party, anti-Israel. Is questioning the Israeli government actions by its very nature anti-Semitic?
Not questioning not questioning its actions.
If you question what they do in the West Bank.
But if you question somebody, a governor of a state, and ask him if he's a double agent for Israel, I mean, good Lord.
No,
that reeks of
But
anti-Semitism.
on its surface, questioning maybe settlement activity in the West Bank or something that goes on in Gaza is not by itself anti-Semitic.
No, not questioning. I mean, look, it's fine to question people's actions, but I think we've seen from this party, and particularly the likes of Mamdani, who pals around with folks like Students for Justice in Palestine and some of these pro-Hamas groups. I mean, that's what we're seeing out of the Democratic Party.
John, respond to that.
The Democratic Party needs to untangle some of these things for themselves. I would say that the right and the left have both struggled with major flanks of their party who have been, peddling an anti-Semitic, rumors and conspiracy theories. So it's something that both parties need to get serious about. And I think it's to anyone who's actually listening, they can easily untangle these two things and be against the atrocities that we're seeing out of the Netanyahu government, and of course, still standing up for the rights and protections of Jewish people.
Because he loves it so, Elon Musk will be talked about again. He does love it so. Strokes a $10 million check to a super PAC supporting a Republican in Kentucky. An enormous amount. sloshing around in Kentucky.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money anywhere. It's a heck of a lot of money for ad buys in Kentucky. How do you interpret that, Lance?
I was surprised he was jumping into a Republican primary, but I know Nate Morris is supported by a lot of folks close in Donald Trump Jr. and others in the Trump administration, so I guess I wasn't completely surprised.
But this would be, to your mind, reflective of realignment?
Yeah, it is reflective of realignment. This is kind of a barn burner of a race. It's obviously for the Mitch McConnell seat, which has been held by the leader for 40-some years. Yeah, I was a tad surprised by it. If you ask the Barr people, Andy Barr, who's also in the race, they would say, well, Nate Morris has already spent $6 million and he hasn't done anything, so he needs the $10 million. So this is going to be an explosive.
John, is Elon Musk going to be a part of the Democratic conversation in the midterms?
Well, I mean, I think he's going to be, because he's going to keep spending money like this. How could he not? But I mean, what he seems to be really good at is getting headlines and attention. It doesn't necessarily translate into votes. I mean, I remember this past cycle, there was that wacky thing where he was giving away $1 million checks on stage. And as a Democrat, I mean, I welcome that contrast.
And the Wisconsin
and it didn't even go his way after all of that.
And as a Republican operative, I welcome the money that's coming.
Yeah, tagline of the Republican Party right there in the era of Trump.
Julia Letlow, who is a congresswoman from Louisiana, not announced against Bill Cassidy. There'd been a long-running, quiet effort on Bill Cassidy's part to get and secure Trump's endorsement. He didn't get it. The president has now put both feet for a candidate who hasn't even announced and basically abandoning an incumbent Republican senator in Louisiana.
I followed Julia Letlow from afar for many years. Obviously, she didn't come into this. She never wanted to be a member of Congress. Her husband died of COVID, and she found herself a member of Congress. She's been a hardworking member. She's kind of focused on issues like education and helping small businesses and the like. I think she's made a lot of friends on Capitol Hill, from what I understand. And guess what? She didn't vote to convict Donald Trump of impeachment, and so there you go.
Bill Cassidy did, and
bad weekend
anything is true about President Trump. He doesn't forget episodes like that. Lance Trover, John McCarthy, always a pleasure. And you got the memo on the tie.
No tie today.
Well done. Up next, one or two, guy? One. Okay, up next, the lessons of Martin Luther King Jr. and today's turbulent times. We will explore both when we come back here on The Takeout.
I have a dream. My four little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
Welcome back to Takeout. That was Martin Luther King Jr. on August 28th, 1963, reciting his famous I Have a Dream speech. Today, we're Martin Luther King Jr., a national holiday recognizing the civil rights activist's life and his profound legacy for this country and the world. King was assassinated at just 39 years old in 1968. This past Thursday would have been his 97th birthday. I'm joined now by Dr. King's son, Martin Luther King III, and his wife, Andrea Waters King. Together, they run the Drum Major Institute, which was founded by Dr. King in 1961 to combat racism, poverty, and violence. I'm honored to have both of you with me this afternoon. Martin, as you well know, Martin Luther King Jr. was a great orator. He also said to protest, you have to have a purpose, and there has to be a strategy behind that which you are trying to achieve with your protesting. And civil disobedience, nonviolent civil disobedience was at the core of that work. What do you think the lessons of that would be for those who are protesting Trump administration policies today be?
Well, I think that, first of all, thank you for the opportunity. But I think that the lesson is that because of the method and the manner that protests took place, ultimately there were victories. I wish there was a magic wand that could be waved and conduct would occur differently. And what I mean by that is I think people are rejecting the aggressive policies. People may or may not reject the fact that, yes, some immigrants must be picked up, but it's the approach oftentimes that is creating the problem. And the fact that you're going into schools, dividing families, you're going into houses of worship, you're going just through the community. And that obviously creates a lot of discomfort, particularly for anybody who happens to be a citizen. So, but the learning process should be that if this is done in a nonviolent way, it can have results. I think my dad, his team, my mom approved that. And I think I don't know what ultimately is going to be the change, but we keep seeing more and more people joining in to say, listen, it's not that you are enacting a policy, it's how you're choosing, I think, is what the problem is.
Andrea, your thoughts?
As I was listening to Martin, one of the things I also reflected on is his father's saying that the greatness of America is the right to protest for that which is right. I think that that is, we're coming up this year on 250-year anniversary of the founding of the United States. And when you really think about even from the Tea Party, like the Boston Tea Party, excuse me. And, that has always been the greatness of this country, whether certainly we're looking and thinking about the civil rights movement today, but if you think about the women's suffrage movement, equality, ERA movement, there have been so many movements in this country. That is how we are that's how the marginalized or those that feel that they're voiceless makes their voices heard and known. And as long as it remains nonviolent, we certainly are in the spirit not only of Martin Luther King Jr., but in some ways even the founding fathers of this country.
Martin, there was an executive order President Trump signed early in his second term about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it has had many ramifications throughout the federal government. One of them is to remove lots of references to either your father, the desegregation movement, segregation, Jim Crow, and some of the violence that attended all of that struggle. Is part of your father's legacy being erased?
Well, I think it really is American history that's being erased, not just Martin Luther King Jr., because he was one person who did lead a part of the leadership of the modern civil rights movement. But the fact that you're disacknowledging the history, if you do not know the history, then it probably is going to be a strange path to get to a better truth. So, my view is whether it's diversity, the reality, the truth of the matter is, and somewhere I read, ye shall know the truth and the truth shall set you free. It feels like we want to divert from what is true. This is not to bastardize or to beat up anyone over the head to say this is what happened. It's just to talk about the true history of this country. And it had its aches and its pains, and it has grown to be a great nation, but can become a greater nation. But you cannot diminish and dismiss the history of the people.
Andrea, very quickly, the president, that is to say President Trump, recently told the New York Times that he believed enforcement of civil rights laws has discriminated against white Americans, and that reverse discrimination is something that Martin Luther King Jr. would have never stood for, and is trying to align himself, therefore, with the spirit of Dr. King's movement. I'd like your evaluation of that.
Well, I think that those words were very unfortunate, and I think that they were harmful. And I think that they were untrue. Dr. King's message was not about lifting up one particular group of people. What his message was about lifting us all up and creating truly a symphony of brotherhood and sisterhood in this country. Whenever you're using words or division, you're actually doing the exact opposite of what Martin Luther King Jr. Worked, fought, and eventually died for, which is the best of who we all are as Americans.
Martin Luther King III and Andrea Waters King, on this Martin Luther King Day, I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
It's big Monday night in Miami. All nights are big in Miami, I'm told. The Hurricanes and the Hoosiers meet for the ultimate prize in college football. More on the championship game next from a student's perspective, right here on The Takeout. Welcome back to The Takeout. Kind of a Cinderella story is the umbrella to tonight's college football championship. Number 1 ranked Indiana will take on the 10 seed Miami Hurricanes. Indiana, undefeated, dominated throughout the playoffs, but when the season started, they were thought of as a kind of a fringe college playoff team and have proved far more dominant this season than any of the so-called experts projected. Miami, almost didn't even make it into the college football playoff. They were nearly eliminated on Selection Sunday, but they got in, much to the consternation and fury of University of Notre Dame. But they made it in, and no 10 seed has ever made it this far in the college football playoff. The championship game, typically at a neutral site, but it just so happens to be in Miami this year, and that's where we find Francisco Casares and Shay McDonald. Francisco attends Indiana, Shay, student at the U. So, Shay, let me start with you. This is a big deal for the U. Once a dominant football program, then for years in the sort of hinterland, overlooked, disregarded, now right back center stage.
Sorry, could you say that last bit again?
Your center stage, University of Miami, is now at this apex moment for its football program where it hasn't been for some time.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just a crazy moment to just be here and see where this program has kind of developed over these last few years. I came in as a freshman. We had that Tyler Van Dyke year that started out a little bit hot. You take on Texas A&M and take them down, open the year, and then things kind of fizzle out. Kind of same deal last year. We're all excited. We're watching Cam Ward throw the football all around the field, and then that late season slip up, and then you fall through again when you felt like it could have made the playoffs. And then this year, you thought this team was going to miss it after that loss to SMU. Then they rally and they play really well to end the season. And we've really seen what this team has done over the course of this playoff run. And now the fact that they're here, you're watching Michael Irvin, Ray Lewis, all these former Miami legends across the sideline going crazy. It's just been a phenomenal experience to be and see how this program has come so far.
Francisco, about Indiana, this is, I am told, a complete statewide experience. Many schools in Indiana won't even go to class tomorrow. Some will be on a 2-hour delay if they're even in at all. The entire state, I am told, is bedecked in red. This is a monstrous moment for Indiana University.
Absolutely. I mean, we're typically known as a basketball school. When I was growing up, that's how it was. So people would cheer for Notre Dame football and then Indiana basketball. But this year, it's been all cream and crimson throughout the entire state. So it's been really, really impressive to see how much of a community moment this whole season has been with a team that, let's face it, was one of the worst teams in college football for decades and decades. And now they've made this incredible turnaround. It's just been really amazing for the IU, the Bloomington, the Indiana community as a whole.
And Francisco, what does your blazer say? In what capacity are you at the game?
Absolutely. So this is our student athletic board blazer. I'm the president of this year's board, and we run the student section for all 24 varsity sports. So you'll see us in the front of basketball, football games, all of those like field hockey, women's soccer, all those sports in the front row with our blazers, trying to cheer on Hoosiers, work with marketing to get students out to the games, and just be the spirit behind IU athletics.
And Shay, I can tell you already have a camera presence. You have some experience. Tell me while you're at the game.
Yeah, so I'm involved in student media here at UM. We have the best broadcast program in the nation, and I'm here representing UMTV, our student-run TV station. That's part of our sports show, Sports Desk.
Shay, I love you. I really do. But I'm a University of Missouri grad, and you don't have the best TV program in the country. I'll just tell you that right now. But I will give you another word, Shay, on what it's been like for the student population to watch this season for the football program as it's progressed and made it to this moment tonight. Shay lost me. I can see that look on his face. Francisco, I will put it to you.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Shay, can you hear me?
It's absolutely incredible, especially with...
Yeah, go ahead, Francisco.
Can you hear me at all? Okay. It's just been incredible to watch the turnaround from coming through the first 2 seasons. I think we were 3-9 my sophomore year, and now the last 2 years. It's been absolutely incredible watching from like half-full stadiums at best, and now we're selling out Memorial Stadium every game. It's been absolutely incredible to watch this team and how they've rallied around the community and how the community has rallied around them. It's been just short of breathtaking. There are no words.
I'm going to use context clues to answer the question. Yeah, in terms of being a student here, it has been really phenomenal. I talked about earlier, just seeing this program get better year by year, seeing kind of the way this community and these fans are so excited that this historic and legendary team is back. It's really exciting.
Shay McDonald, Francisco Caceres, thank you so much. Enjoy the game. Happy Monday, everyone. This is The Takeout, relentlessly curious, reliably civil, occasionally clever. The Daily Report, coming your way next.